Thank you for joining me here at the Real ResQ Podcast. We've teamed up with Vertical Magazine to create Helicast, the Vertical Podcast Network. We're alongside the Hangar Z Podcast, the Helicopter Podcast, and Vertical MRO Podcast. There are more podcasts coming, so go to verticalhelicast.com to check out the latest and greatest of each episode. Now let's say thank you to our sponsors for this episode. Precision Aviation Group. Their precision is the key to your performance. See what they can do for you at precisionaviationgroup.com. Ready Swimmer. Training the body, sharpening the mind, and building leaders. Our mission is to make you ready. So go check out readyswimmer.com. I have to mention the realresqstore.com because we've got new designs going on the website all the time. Check out the realresqstore.com to help support this podcast. I'm starting something new with this episode. Before we dive into the incredible stories from our guests, I want to share some fun facts about them. Personal highlights that go beyond the amazing things that they have accomplished. So our next guest has some incredible stories from his time in the United States Coast Guard, as well as a story when he was on an air ambulance as a civilian. But first, here are 3 fun facts about him. His favorite movie is The Wizard of Oz. He has a bit of an obsession with buying shoes. He might even say to an embarrassing degree. Now I can't say how many shoes he has, but I'm sure it's more than me. He also enjoys a good romantic comedy. Please welcome to the show our next guest, United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 431, Mr. Matt High. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ. Today I've got another finned brother with me. I'm super pumped about it. We were in the Coast Guard at the same time, but never stationed together. He had a couple years on me, so I'll give you that. Ladies and gentlemen, United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer number 431, Mr. Matt High. What's up, my brother?
Hey, how's it going? It's about time, huh?
About time. Let's see. I asked you 2 years ago.
Hey, it may have been longer. Yeah.
It may have been.
I know. Yeah.
It's all good. You know what? What do they say? Good things happen or good things come to those who wait. Is that how it ever goes?
Well, we'll hope, right? Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I'm okay with it. Matt, dude, I'm psyched you're on, man. You and I have actually had quite a few talks about coming on. And one of the things that I always find interesting in your part of this career is you're like, I didn't really do anything. I don't have anything. I was like, well, then you and I talk, and I'm like, yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
I've never looked for the big, bad, craziest rescue ever. I just want to hear a good story. And you have those. But the other part about this that I'm really excited about with you and I is that you were throughout your career, you did a lot of training, and that's so important to so much of what we do in real time, in real world. So it's exciting. Yeah. I'm stoked to get into this with you. But let's start like this, man.
Yeah.
What's Matt all about? Tell us all about you. What brought you into the Coast Guard?
Oh, baby. Well, it was not my plan.
That's always fun.
Yeah. I grew up in California and grew up swimming and playing water polo, and had just gone through. I was in college, had just gone through a pretty bad breakup, and didn't feel like going to class one day, and found myself in a Air Force recruiter's office of all things, and was like, well, maybe I'll go. I was like, maybe I'll go the medical route. They've got some, medics and things like that. So I walked in there, and those guys were the biggest let's just say not helpful. And I was pretty discouraged without using some other colorful language. Nothing against my Air Force friends. Nothing against my Air Force brothers and sisters that I know and have now. I'm very fond of all of you, but those guys were terrible. This was 1992, by the way. So I was walking back to my car completely like, meh. And walked by, you know, how all those recruiting centers have them all, you know, in a line. You know, if you don't get one, the other one is going to get you. And I walked by the Coast Guard recruiter's office, and I saw a poster in the window with a small boat and a helicopter. And I was like, Coast Guard. What? And I'm in Fresno, California, Central California, San Joaquin Valley. Like, this is farm country, right?
So there's no coast there.
Nothing
the coast is
there.
A couple hours away.
A couple hours away, right? And we'll get to that. So I was like, Coast Guard, what are these guys about? And I walked in there, Jason, 3 of the best dudes I ever met. Like, they're like, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. Sit down, coffee and a donut. I'm like, man, coffee and donuts. This place is all right. What's going on here? And next thing I know, I'm sitting there 2 hours later. I had signed up on the delayed entry program as a reservist. Not a lot of people know that I was a reservist my first year in the Coast Guard.
Oh, no kidding. So I didn't know that. Look at this.
I know.
Jeez. Been friends for a long time. I didn't know that. That's terrible.
Well, I didn't want to not go to school. I was going to school, actually, believe it or not, to be a teacher, and I was coaching high school swimming and water polo at the time that I joined. So I delayed entry program, ended up going to boot camp that summer. Graduated. My first duty station was Small Boat Station, Monterey. Okay. And so I did 30 days right after basic training.
Still in California.
Yep. Right after basic, I did 30 days of OJT at a small boat unit, and came back. I was working, dude. I was driving a forklift for a trucking company, 5 p.m. to 5 a.m., and then going to school and coaching. During that whole time, now fast forward to the following, like January, you know, like October, November timeframe, I had found a new relationship, which would end up being my first wife. Life takes over, and I was like, well, maybe I need to go active duty. They've got this rescue swimmer thing. I think I could be all right with that. It's a little bit of medicine, a little bit of swimming. I'm already doing that. I kind of grew up in that. So yeah, it makes sense. So I went back to the same 3 guys at the recruiting office in like February. And I said, hey, I think I want to join full-time active duty. And they're like, yeah, we can get you in. And they're like, we can get you in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, hold on a minute. 2 weeks. I'm in classes right now. I was like, I go, yeah, because I told them as soon as possible. And they're like, yeah, we can get you 2 weeks. Coast Guard Cutter Conifer, LALB. And I'm like, that's a black hole, right? 180. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like thinking to myself, because I had already done OJT, a small boat unit. So I'm like, my brain, small boat life. I'm not built for ships, and they're not built for me. And I was like, what do you got small boat wise? And they're like, oh, we get you a small boat, but it's going to be in like May. I said, I'll wait.
Nice.
I'll keep driving forklift. Now, my friends that were on boats are going to hate when they see this, but I avoided Jason. So I ended up going to small boat unit. Long story short.
Nice.
I did 1 day my entire Coast Guard career on anything over 47 feet.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It was when I was a non-rate. I went down to the Coast Guard Cutter Sherman with my BM2 in Alameda to get my seaman prac signed off. Remember, you had to do your practical factors?
Oh, yeah.
So I went down there. I gave my practical factors to the BM2. I walked back off the boat. I went and had lunch with my BM2, walked back on the boat, grabbed my practical factors that were signed off miraculously with no part on me, and walked away.
Dang.
That was the first and last time I was on a Coast Guard cutter, with the exception of I don't even think I was ever hoisted to anything over 82 feet. So yeah, that was it.
That is awesome.
So I spent 4 years at a small boat unit in Mare Island up in San Francisco in the North Bay, and waiting to go to, back then, I mean, you put your name on the A school list, and when I put my name on, the wait was 38 months, and I waited 36 out of 38 months to go to school. So married with a kid, and found out I had another one on the way, like when I got orders, and went to A school. I missed the last 3 months of pregnancy, the birth, and the first 2 months of my daughter while I was at A school. But I do remember getting my butt kicked at A school when she was born, though. It's like, Al Yates, hey, hi, heard your father. Like, yes, Pastor Yates. Go ahead and knock out some push-ups for her. Congratulations. Yeah.
Bro, I didn't realize that either. You and I have a bit of a mirror image of that because my middle daughter was born while I was in A school. But we were getting, I was actually able to leave. Like,
were you?
But it was a very unique time period because she was born on December 19th and we were going into holiday routine like 2 days later. Yeah. So they're like, Quinn, get out of here. And I'm like, are you serious? And they're like, go. So I ended up getting to her the next day. So she was 1 day old and I got to spend a whole week with her. Went back to school after that and then had my ass handed to me because I hadn't I had never been so sore in my life, man. The next day, and of course, my classmates are like, I'm like, it happens. And back then, there's only, you start with. When I went through, we start with 6. We ended up with 5, and at the end of the first week, and all 5 of us ended up making it. But that's awesome.
Pensacola, and Jason Bunch and I were instructors together at A school later on down the road. So we've I think only one of us got out after the first tour. The other 4 of us stayed in for the long haul, and I think one just got. I think Brian Dix just retired, or maybe he's still in. I'm not sure, but he ended up going Warren. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. You had all 5 of your class graduate.
Yeah.
Wow.
5 out of the 6.
I get another one, like a mirror image of you and I, because we lost one guy in our class who ended up graduating 2 classes later. He just got moved back. So our entire class graduated, just 7 at once, and then the one guy a couple later.
Dude, the guy we lost week 1, like the first day, Brian Dix and I and we're looking at this dude. It was straight out of he was like the Guardian. And we're looking at him, we're like, dude, if this is what it takes to be a swimmer, I'm not going to make it. Just looking at this dude, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to make this. If that's what I got to look like,
shoulders as wide as a Mack truck. V-cut.
He was probably 6'1", probably 215, and just ripped. And I'm like, but the water killed him, and that's what makes a guy my size and a guy his size equal. You know that. The water. He was like, that's it, done. So we didn't see him after the first week. We're like, where'd that dude? Like, dude, we were in class and came back and he was gone. We're like, we never saw him again. I couldn't tell you his name right now if you held me hostage.
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
There's a reason that there's a 70% dropout rate, a 30% pass rate, 40% pass rate, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think the attrition. It's been a while. I don't know what it is now, but I think if we were to go back to 85 to now, I would say the overall attrition rate is somewhere. Historically, it's always been somewhere in the 55%, 55 to 60%.
Saying a little bit.
Yeah. There's ebbs and flows. Like, when I was there, when I was there, we did a study of the old curriculum that I went through versus the new curriculum. It's even changed now, but even the new curriculum with more people, with more students in a class, the old 6 students per class, I think I think in a 2-year span, if I remember right, there were like, I want to say there were 48 students in a year and a half or 2 years, and 48 students, I think 36 graduated. And then the newer curriculum that we had changed to, there were 84 and 42 had graduated. So there was a big disparity. Like, larger classes don't necessarily mean more throughput is basically what it boiled down to. So yeah, it was interesting, but it's changed so much since then. We're talking, I left there 20 years ago. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Wow. Holy cow.
Man, I am old. That hurt
No,
to
you're
say.
not. No, you're not. Because that means that I'm kind of old and I'm not old.
Oh,
Although
man.
I will tell you, some of the workouts I do now, he's like, oh yeah, that hurts. That hurts for a little longer than it should.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. All right. So now, once you graduate A school, what was your first unit?
Traverse City, Michigan, where I'm at now.
And you went there at A school, and then you just kind of never left. Even though you left to go to different units, you never really left.
It's one of those places, and the people that have been here, and I'm sure you heard it over your career, and you've heard it from people. It's and even being a California kid, I mean, my career, when I left California to come here at my first tour, I was gone. I left California for 18 years before I returned to go back, and I finished my career in LA, and I essentially back home, and I couldn't wait to retire and come back here. Like the first year, after the first year I was here, I kind of had it pretty much cemented in my head that when it was all said and done and I retired, this is where I wanted to be. So having that piece of information in the back of my head my whole career was kind of nice. It was kind of a comforting thought. And every time I came back here, I always felt like I was coming home. So it just kind of it always felt like home to me. So
nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. So you get there, you get all qualified. What was your very first rescue? Do you remember?
Yeah, it's funny. You and I talked about it. I'm almost positive the first one was up in the UP, and it was a couple of sheriffs.
UP. Where the heck is UP?
Up in the Upper Peninsula.
Oh, okay,
the Upper Peninsula, of Michigan.
Yeah, I got it. Okay,
exactly. Woo! Yeah, so this up here.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So if you put your hand up, it's right hand, the top part, facing top part. Got it.
Yep, top
probably
part.
For everybody that's listening.
Right. Yeah.
You know what? You know what's funny right now is there's probably people that are putting their right hand up in front of their face. Oh yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Where is it now? Yeah. So the top part there. It was a couple of guys had washed into a river a flooded river. I think it was a Black River, trying to help someone, and they ended up washing out on like this small spit of land and trapped. Just like water was flooding out on them. So it was, we end up flying up there at like dusk, I think it was, and it was up in the UP. Michigan it's not famous for mountains. It's not like Utah or Colorado. So, but there are there's some higher hills, we'll call them, up in the UP. Okay. So I mean, it was
kind of like
pretty high. Yeah, it was a pretty high hoist. I mean, because of the we're kind of in this like little gorge area where the river was running through, and so we ended up doing probably 180, 190 foot hoist. So when your first time. And most up until that point, all of your hoists have been like 40 feet. It's training flights. And then you get up there and you get outside the door and you look down and you start looking at the cable that's the size of a pencil. And then you start thinking about like the guys that were just doing the cable inspection. You're like, I don't know about that guy. So the thoughts creep through your head and you're like, So, but yeah, it was pretty mundane, a couple basket hoists, and then they retrieved me. But I mean, it's just one of those things, like you have that thought. Like I say it all the time, and I'm sure you think about it too. Like your first time at AHARS, and you do your first time doing vertical surface, and you're okay. And then you come off the cliff face and you look down and there's 200 feet below you and rocks and crashing surf. And you look at I don't care if you've come off the cliff for the first time in your career or the 200th time, there's still that just initial like gut, like, okay, I'm all right. Yeah, but there's still that oh, okay. Yeah, we're good. Hurry up. So, yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have that, I might question a couple things.
Something's wrong with you. Yeah, if you're too comfortable up there's something wrong with you. Uh-huh. Yeah, you're a little touched. I mean, we're all a little touched. Don't get me wrong, but you're special touched.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's funny. Dude, talk about the first time. Like the first time you're in a helicopter, even not just a SAR case. Like I can remember being in my first unit. Obviously, they have 60s here in Traverse City now, but we had 65s back then, Alpha models. And I remember being on the taxiway. We kind of taxied out, and I'm thinking like, oh, okay, and you're hooked up to ICS and you got your little thumb on the button, you're all like, "Ooh, this is awesome,"
Yeah.
And you're sitting in the back, and all of a sudden we start doing a rolling takeoff, and I'm like, dude, I'm being honest here. It's amnesty hour. We're all family. I didn't know helicopters ran and took off. I thought they all just picked up and went. In my brain, I'm like, what are we doing? I was like, should I say something? What are we doing? I'm like, you look back now, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. But yeah. So it's not even the first. It's not even the first hard case. It's just the first time you do a running takeoff. You're like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Why is this happening?
Yeah, I didn't know we did this. I didn't know they did this. That's crazy. Yeah, and especially and a 65. So it's like, and then it's like nose and over, and I'm looking down the back of the flight medic's head, and I'm like, what are we doing? Yeah. Pretty funny.
Well, it's just a little bit of an angle. You're not even straight when you kick off. There's that little bit of a kick to the left, and you're like, what the?
Yeah, we're not even going to get into lost to tail rotor and swapping nose for tail. That's a whole nother level of.
Agreed. And yeah. The aerodynamics and all that stuff. And that's not what I graduated. I did not graduate from that school. I graduated from summer school. We're good.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Oh, dude. Man, thank you for sharing that. One of the things I love about our very first rescues is like, you never know what it's going to be, and everybody has it, so everybody gets jazzed up. I mean, you're talking about let's call it 190 foot hoist, your very first rescue, bro.
Right.
Yeah. I can see that. You're looking at it, you're like, hey, can we come down a little bit, please? Like, this is not what I trained. We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors.
Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory, globally 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
I just thank God by the time I got qualified, like the Coast Guard had finally phased out of the HB11 harness while I was while I was graduating A school. So we used the HB11 harnesses and SAR 1s when I was at A school. I didn't see I saw a TriSAR harness at A school, but we didn't train in it, and I didn't. So when I got to the unit, they threw a TriSAR harness. I'm like, oh, sweet! I get to wear this. I don't have to wear the HB11. To all my brothers and sisters that came before me in that harness, I understand why you're 2 inches taller than you were when you started.
So for those that don't know, the Coast Guard, they've gone through multiple parts of harnesses, and that was the MBU-11. Was
HB11.
Oh, sorry.
It was just a torso. It was a Navy harness. It was a torso harness, but yeah.
But I was lucky enough. I didn't have to wear that. I went right into the TriSAR. I loved that thing. And when the Triton came out, I loved it even more. I'm like, oh, this is it's a full body harness.
I'm almost kind of glad we didn't have the TriSAR harness going through A school, because you know how you remember when they threw all your gear in the pool and you had to put it on, like trying to put that rat's nest on rather than just putting on the HB11 that just went over your torso. I think we kind of saved ourselves a little bit.
Yeah. So what we're talking about right now in A school is like you drop all your gear in the pool and then you have to put it on in the water. And you've
let's be honest. We didn't get to drop our gear in the pool. It was more like thrown in there.
Yeah, yard sale, boosh.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure it all out. And then if you grab the wrong harness, because there was once I grabbed a medium and I'm like, that's not going to fit me. I'm like trying to contort myself into the harness.
Yeah.
This is not mine. This is not working.
Thankfully, most of the guys in my class were all pretty much about the same size.
Oh, that's funny. Oh man, God, I love this stuff. All right, so let's go to another one, because you had, I know you've had a couple. And how long? You did 4 years in Traverse City?
I did 4 years in Traverse City, and it's funny, for some reason, when I was on my when I just finished I was coming up to my third summer there, I got orders to New Orleans, and I didn't know why. HQ had messed up my report date for some reason. So for about 3 months there, I thought for sure I was going to Air Station New Orleans. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
And then that went away there. Then they finally sent me a message saying, oh yeah, we messed up. You got one more year. And I was like, all right. So I had put in, again, life had taken over. My first wife and I had gone different directions. So I wanted a job where I didn't stand duty because my kids were really young. So yep. I had actually put in for a couple of other out of rate assignments, and Butch Flythe, Master Chief Flythe, was my first shop chief when I first got to Traverse City. He was Senior Chief Flythe at the time. And the whole time I was here in Traverse City, my first tour, I was coaching the high school swim team. So I've kind of done that at every tour, at every stop along the way, because cool. I just like doing it. I loved it. So Butch calls me and it's like, hey, hi, you're coming down to A school, in his voice. I can't do it very well. And I'm like, Brad Smarta was down there. He had gone the year before me, and Brad and I were here in Traverse City, my first tour, one of my best friends at the time. And so I'm like, I just made second class. I don't care. They're non-rates. They're going to adore you. And I'm like, I don't know about that. And so I was like, okay, if you think so. So that's literally how I ended up. And thank God for him. I mean, I love the guy, good friends with him to this day. And we shoot text messages and stuff. But yeah, so he brought me down to A school and then left a year after I got, like a year or two after I got there. I'm like, oh, you left me here. So, but anyway, so I went to A school, and got to A school in 2001. I was there from 2001 to 2005. Yeah. Right. That's how I ended up there. Yeah. And my whole plan, cool. my whole plan the whole time I was there was to get out after that tour. I was done.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. I was going to get out. I was going to go back to college, finish my degree, and start teaching and be around the kids and be closer.
Oh, that's cool. And then another twist came in, and then, yeah. It's funny.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to say this all the time, like, we plan, God laughs. He's like,
oh, yeah.
Watch this.
I met Steph there. And she's like, how many years do you have in? And I said, well, but by the end of this. And I said, well, at the end of this, I'll have 12. And she's like, you're an idiot. I was like, what? Like, you need to stay in.
God bless a good woman.
You need to stay in. And I was like, yeah, but you're not the one that has to do it. I am. Like, I'm the one that's got to do it. She's like, well, you need to stay in. And I was like, all right, well, so I stayed. But I kind of, I mean, the whole 4 years I was A school, I never took a service-wide examination. That's what you take for promotion, as we know. Yeah. So I kind of had already resigned to the fact that I was going to get out. So I didn't start taking the service-wide again until after A school. After I left A school.
So what? That's
sat on the bench. I sat on the bench. So I sat on the bench for 4 years.
Yeah.
Because I had it in my head I was going to get out.
And then you have people around you that are getting promoted because they're taking the test.
Nothing wrong with and good on them. Good on them. Yeah, for sure.
Wow, interesting. Okay, right on. So now, outside of A school, after you get out of A school, or when you leave as the instructor, where your next? First question is where was your next unit? Because
right back to Traverse City.
Nice, very nice. Okay, so this is going to get into our.
It was either going to stay in Elizabeth City at the air station or go back to Traverse City. That was it. That's the only. Awesome. That's the only 2 units I put on my dream sheet. I didn't put anything
back
else.
Like Traverse City, East City, Traverse City, East City.
No, it was just East City number 1 and Traverse City number 2. Yeah,
that's cool.
I didn't change anything. I didn't do anything else.
Perfect. And you went back to Traverse City.
Yeah. I have been I was very fortunate, Jason. Like, I mean, obviously I had a dream. I filled out a dream sheet at A school, obviously. And I filled out a dream sheet when I left Traverse City for the first time. Beyond that, I had a 90% to 100% idea where I was going every unit beyond that. So
Oh,
I literally only put 2 choices on my list after that because I had already known.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, kinda. I got recruited.
That's not a bad thing.
I really wanted to go to Barber's Point, but I never got there.
Just send me to Hawaii, please, God. Send me to Hawaii.
I tried. It was probably Roger Wilson. Now, we don't want that guy. He's not legit.
No. Roger.
Yeah. Hi, what are you doing trying to come here? Yeah, I could hear him now. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I forgot about that guy.
So I ended up going back to Traverse City.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So now when you get back to Traverse City, you actually, there's a rescue, another one that kind of stands out to you there because you had to do flood rescue. Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Well, the flood rescue was my first tour. That was the tail end of my first tour. No, it's good. That was the tail end of my first tour. I was there I had been there for 3 years. And, 3 years in Traverse City, there's not a lot of SAR going on, right? So, I mean, I'm still young in the rate, still young in the job. And we get called out in, I think it was probably March. So, for those that don't know, March around here is kind of like the thaw. So things start to thaw out. Yeah. And there was the Rock River in Moline, Illinois. The ice flows had started to break open, and it flooded the Rock River in Moline, Illinois, in this like community of. It always hits the worst communities it can, the ones that aren't ready for it or prepared. It just always seems that way. But I get on the aircraft. I start walking. My duty day was the operations officer, the engineering officer, and my flight mech was getting ready to retire. He had like 22 or 23 years in, and then three-year-old Matt High. And I'm like, we're flying out. And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, I don't care what happens. I'm bulletproof for these guys. I'm good. Yeah. And we fly out, and we get, of course we have to. It's 65, so we got to stop. 7 times for gas. No, we made one fuel stop. So we get there. I love that machine. So we get there, and so the police department and fire department had kind of already set up like areas to like, hey, go look at this place. We heard there's 2 people in this mobile home, and we're like, okay. So we fly over, and of course it's flooded. You look down. There's power lines, trees, and you look down and like the decking of the house is flooded out. And I'm like thinking like, okay, well, if they're in there, they're sitting on the kitchen counter or something. Like, so we're like, all right. So we're like, hey, Matt, we're going to let's hoist you down to the deck. And then you can go in and, do a look and make sure there's people in there or not. And I'm like, all right. So they hoist me down, over these power lines next to this tree. And I'm thinking, thank God I got these guys. They know what they're doing. Because I'm like, yeah, okay. So I get down to the deck, and like as soon as I hit the deck, my right foot goes through the decking up to my knee. And I'm like, oh, well, that was great. And then I'm, of course you're doing like the quick check, and we're in the old blue and orange Tri-Lam dry suits, not the newer ones. So of course you do a check like, oh, did I rip it? Everything good? I'm like, all right, I don't feel any water. I'm good. So then you start gingerly walking across the deck. Knock on the door, nothing. Knock on the door again, nothing. I jiggle the lock. I jiggle the door handle. It's open. So I kind of open the door and poke my head in. I'm like, hello. And there's a mom and her probably, late 30s, early 40s son in the house. And they've got the stove on for heat, the gas stove. And I'm like, okay. Hey, you guys ready to get out of here? And they're like, yeah, is that you guys overhead? And I was like, yeah. You're going to have to step in this water, though. I'm sorry. And I'm just apologizing, And so we get her in the basket, and then
I love this.
Hoist the son out, and then I get hoisted out, and then there's a couple other hoists like that, not like walking in on people, but people kind of waving and stuff, and I think the next day we pick up a guy and he's like, I got my dogs in the back of the camper. He's got a pickup truck with a camper top on it. You know, the kind with the latches that you lock. And he's like, what about my dogs? And I was like, well, are they good dogs? And he's like, what kind of dogs are they? He's like, they're a couple German Shepherds. I'm like, okay, well, the water's like maybe up to my knees, and they say it's not supposed to get any worse or any better. And I'm like, I felt horrible, but I was like, I hoisted him out in the basket, and then I opened up the camper, and all I saw, Jason, were teeth. And I was like, I didn't lock it. I just closed the door and grabbed the hook and got out of there. I was like,
where are my dogs? Well, you see, sir, they were going to bite my head off. So I decided that I needed to leave. Sorry.
I kind of need my hands to make connections to things. So yeah. So yeah, but that was right before I left. Yeah.
I'm kind of laughing at that. My wife is like, oh gosh, you left the dogs. And it's funny, like
I see those dogs all the time. I'm sure they made it. I tell myself every day those dogs just opened up the camper and or hunkered down. It was fine. The water never rose beyond what it was, so I knew that. Yeah, so it was good. I think they were fine.
They were fine. Fine.
Yeah.
And he got back there. The dogs were fine. Dogs came home.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the way that story ended.
Yeah.
That's the way I heard it anyway.
Right. Yeah. That's the way I tell it. So
I love it.
Yeah. So that was right.
I did not mean to mix that up with the first tour and second tour.
Yeah, that's good.
So end of the first tour, you go to A school. Now you come back. So this is it. This is the interesting time because you had not been staying in duty for 4 years. And then your first rescue, when you get back to Traverse, this is what you get called on. Go.
Yeah. So I literally my swimmer bag sat in the corner for 4 years at school in North Carolina. Like it never even got, I think I opened it maybe once, but never for 4 years. It wasn't part of the job. We didn't stand duty. It wasn't anything. So, when you don't stand duty for more than a year, you have to go through a full requal. So when I first got back, I was like, I'm going to go to nights. And they're like, what? I'm like, I'm going to nights. So that way I don't have any distractions. Because I had to requal everything, basic air crew, RS, the whole deal. So, so I went to nights with no, so there's no, because you know how it is working days, there's too many distractions. So I stayed on nights for about 3 weeks, got fully requalified, and then came back on to days and started in the duty rotation. It was like either my first or second duty day after getting requalled. The SAR alarm goes off probably, 8 o'clock at night. Beaver Island, which is just off of the main body of Sleeping Bear Dunes area. It's the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Park up in just outside of Traverse City. There's a couple of islands up there. So we get a call. I'm sorry, it wasn't Beaver Island. It was North Manitou Island. So we get a call, 20-year-old mid-shaft femur fracture, Manitou Island, which is only about a 40-minute flight away, mind you, if that. Okay. So, and I'm thinking, oh, crap. And, I haven't been to research. It's been a year since I was at EMT research. We still did that from A school. You still had to keep your EMT quals. But I'm like, I haven't seen this gear since a year ago, So I'm like, I'm in the back frantically opening up the EMT pack, right? And we brought a litter with us because we knew it was mid-shaft femur fracture. And I've got the litter stacked up on its side in a 65, how it normally goes. And I'm opening the bag and I'm frantically looking around for the KED traction splint, right? Uh-huh. And I find it and I open it up and, the instructions manual is in there. Thank God. And I'm flipping through. I got the light on and I'm just like this, flipping. And the flight mech turns around and looks at me and he goes, "Hey, man, are you all right?" And I go, "Oh, yeah, I'll be good." In my head, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'll be good. I'll figure this out. Don't you worry about it. I saw it in a movie once, right?"
Yeah.
I go down with the bag, and I get there, and they hoist me out, and I'm looking, and there's a couple of park ranger guys, or DNR guys, the Department of Natural Resources, and I go, hey, where's the patient? And they're like, oh, get in the boat. And I'm like, the boat? He's like, it's around the corner. And I was like, what? So I get in this aluminum boat of theirs, this DNR boat, and these guys are just hauling, wah, 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 and we're coming and just hitting rocks. And I'm on the bow of this thing, like trying not to get tossed out. I'm like, oh my, I'm having flashbacks from small boat days, right? Like, oh, we're going to do SAR from small boats now. I got a helicopter following me. All right. So we go around the corner, and he pulls into the beach, and I get off, and there's the kid. He's up on like this sand berm. They got the fire going. And I'm like, hey, bud, you all right? And he goes, yeah. And he's in some pretty good pain. And I look down, and he has the classic, like, you know, the classic bow on his right femur. And I'm like, okay, so it's closed at least. It's not open, which is good, but still. And I'm like, he's laying there, so I go grab the litter. They hoist the litter down. I bring the litter up. Kind of cut his pants down the side, cut his pant leg off, and I go, hey man, so I'm going to put this on you. And I said, when I pull, everything I've been told my whole life in medical is when I pull this thing and make this foot the same length as your other foot, you're going to feel some relief. And he's like, okay. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, and I hope I'm right, because I've never done this, but that's what I've been told. So I don't want to lie to this kid. And he goes, is it going to hurt? And I'm like, probably, but you're going to feel some relief after, they say. I didn't say I said they say. So
Yeah. Well played, sir.
I go, here, bite on this towel. You know, so he's got a towel there with him. He's biting down, and I pull traction on it. And Jason, I swear, I'm watching his face, right? Because that's what they tell you to do, watch the patient's face in ENT school. I'm watching, and all of a sudden he's like, and I go, oh, it worked. Wow, that's awesome. And I was like, I didn't think it would. And you know, you hope, but in the back of your mind, you're always the perpetual skeptic, right? And you're like, it worked. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Put him in the litter. Had his friends help me put him in the litter. We packaged him up. About 120-foot litter hoist later, they hoist me up. We go drop him off at the hospital, and that was it. Yeah, crazy. But the whole fact of like, really, mid-shaft femur fracture, my first one after 4 years of not doing anything, and I'm in the back reading the manual. Like, man, I don't want to ball this poor kid up. He's going to look at me like, who's this jabroni they flew out here in a helicopter? I could have just walked off the island and saved myself the plane.
And you know what? Good for you for reading the manual, right? Because there's a lot of people that would just go out there and wing it and totally screw it up. You're
Listen, I say it all the time, and you've heard me say, like, with a name like Matt High, it's easy to forget, but it's easy to remember. I get one chance to not ball it up. You know, they're like, oh, who did that? Oh yeah, Matt High.
Easy name. I wasn't even on that. Yeah, but we remember your name.
Yeah, it was your name. Right. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Actually, like now that you say that, one of the things that I remember very distinctly is when I was going through my medic school and I was flying with the guys down in the Gulf of Mexico, all of my medic buddies, Brian Lobenstein specifically, he would always bring out the book. So we would get launched out. He would have whatever we're launched out to, and he would have the book open, reviewing all the steps, all the procedures, all the medications. He already knew it all, but just to do a quick review, I was like, that's brilliant. And I took that. So anytime I rode on an ambulance or anytime I was doing stuff, I'd have the manual. Hey, we're going to a seizure. Right. Just go a quick refresh. Okay, yeah, that's right. Close it up. Let's go. So it's like, it's there, but it's like that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, you are smarter than the average bear.
Well, and if I'm not, I try to read about it and figure it out.
That's good. Yeah. Smart.
What does it say? Trust but verify.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that's great, dude. it's kind of funny to go back into that, and that's what you got. I love the fact you're on a boat too. Like, oh yeah, get in the boat. We're gonna drive you around the edge of the bend.
Yeah. I was like, what are we doing? Yeah. That's just 20 years ago. It was 2005.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
That kid's in his 40s now. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh. And he totally remembers you. He's like, yeah, that guy, I remember him.
God, I hope he doesn't, because I'm sure we both saw fear in each other's eyes.
Like, oh, let me pull. Oh, it worked. All right, let's go.
Yeah, there it is. Look at that.
Oh, that's awesome. We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors. The RealResQStore.com. Your shop for all your podcast-worthy gear. From comfortable shirts to cozy mugs, we've got everything to showcase your love for your favorite podcast. So what are you waiting for? Head to the RealResQStore.com and let your gear do the talking. All right, so now you are, I'm going to pull us out of there because I want to talk about a little bit more. From there, you actually went down to stand team, right?
Yep.
So now you're instructing again, but now it's not really instructing. It's the standardization throughout the Coast Guard to make sure everybody's doing it the same way.
Another recruit job.
Awesome.
The year before I got there, Clay Hill, Master Chief Hill, came and did the stand team visit here in Traverse City, 2008, October 2008, because I left in 2009. So he comes to do the stand visit, and you know how normally they write on your stand check form, like, hey, good IC. They write the same stuff. Good IC, in close in control. Good comms, blah, blah, blah. They write all this stuff, right? You know, trying to make you feel good or what you messed up. Work on this, you know. All Clay writes on my stand check form is, see you in Mobile next summer on the stand team.
Does that mean I passed? I mean...
So it comes time to fill out my dream sheet. All right.
Stand team.
Yeah, that's where I end up.
My God.
I'll be honest with you. A school was awesome. Don't get me wrong. I loved it. And you know, it's awesome. In fact, the shop chief here in Traverse City right now, Dave McClure, was one of my students. Like, it's amazing to see what those guys and girls did throughout their career, like to have a part. Like, I understand how Al Yates, Mike Odell, Mike Pascal, like I understand how those guys look at us and watched us do our career, like having the ability to look back at all of those guys and girls and what the amazing, like, you know, Blake Arnold's the senior chief on the stand team right now. He was a student of mine. Like, seeing those guys and gals now, like in their career and the things that they've done, man, like you can't touch that. That's just amazing. Yeah. And to know that you just had like a 5-minute piece of their entire career, because it's literally about all it is at the end of the day. But to have had the ability to make an impact at that level with some of those people is just amazing, you know. And it was cool. But yeah, going down and, you know, so outside of A school, like when I got down to the stand team, me, Scott Rady, Blaine Elkins, Dustin Scara, we're all first classes. We're all 38 years old. We're all born the same year. We've all been in the Coast Guard about the same amount of time. So it was like Tres Ochos. That was it. So, and then we had Dave Kroll. So I mean, from a office environment and a work environment, oh my God! To this day, hands down, probably the best office work environment I've ever been a part of. It was just amazing. Oh, it was awesome.
Sweet.
Everybody knew their role. Everybody brought something different to the table, had their skill set, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they were good at, what they needed. Like, and there was no ego whatsoever. I mean, it was just amazing. Yeah, it was awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and we're all friends to this day. Obviously, I worked with Dustin and Dave, you know, later on after the Coast Guard. And, you know, I literally just saw Scott Rady 3 weeks ago in North Carolina when I was going to visit the Coast Guard. And,
that's cool.
Yeah. It's just, it was amazing. Yeah. So it's good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, you got out of, like, in your Coast Guard career ended at stand team, is that right?
No. I
did another
won
unit after that?
my final tour was Air Station Los Angeles. Yeah, it came full
that's
circle
right. You
back.
said that.
Came full circle back to California for my last tour. Yep. So
Cool.
yeah.
Do you remember your last rescue? I always ask the first. Do you remember your last one?
Yeah, it was pretty benign. I think
Sweet. Literally
my whole tour in LA, I had one SAR case that I actually did something, and it was we flew out to Catalina and picked up like a 70-year-old woman that was having complications and flew her to the hospital. That was it.
Check.
Now I had guys in my shop that had some amazing things out there, but yeah, not me. I did a lot of like, hey, it's Friday, and they're like, yeah, and I'm like, why don't you get out of here? I'll take the watch. Go home.
You're such a nice guy. Look at
or
you.
Monday morning at 8:00, I'm like, hey, who's got the dog watch? Well, I'm supposed to have it. No, I got it. Get out of here.
Nice.
Yeah, so I would do a lot of that. But they did me a solid. They didn't give me very many weekend duties. So
right on.
So I had to. That was my payback for the guys in the shop. And then of course, we're in LA, so I got guys like Ty Aviao and Chris Graham. Like, I was spoiled my last unit. I had such a great group. But Ty, he's like, hey, Jefe, do you mind if me and the guys go play in the big pool? And I'm like, the big pool, man, can we go surf?
Can we go to the ocean? Yeah.
I'm like, Ty, it's 10:00, and he's like, yeah.
But the waves are amazing, Chief.
I'm like, he's like, yeah, and I go, are we good outside? And he's like, yeah, I think. I go, all right. If you say we're good, if the warrant comes in here and asks for you or something we're missing out there, then if I got to do it, we got issues. And he's like, no, we're good. I'm like, okay. And off he went. But, the Brian Dougherty, the warrant in Los Angeles, was with me on the stand team as the 60 branch chief. So we had a good relationship. But the other side of that too is, you kind of hit it at, when did you graduate A school? 99? 2000.
I started in 99, graduated in 2000.
You kind of were at the very tail end of it. Like, and I was kind of more or less, but we were in a unique situation, you and I, when we went through. Like, we were at the tail end of the inception of the Rescue Swimmer program with ASMs, right? Like the Butch Flights, Clay Hills, Scott Harris's, like those guys that, that came up, and it was maintenance heavy based. And like the swimmer aspect of it was a severe collateral duty, right? And so we kind of grew up with that mindset a little bit. And a little bit like we were always like thinking the swimmer stuff, kind of inching our way there. And the Coast Guard was kind of inching its way there, right? But we weren't there. We kind of cut our teeth under those guys, which was great. So we kind of carried that along, or at least I did. I kind of carried that mindset along my whole career, right? So, I mean, and then obviously now, I mean, the swimmer part, I mean, they pick up the phone now. It's like swimmer shop, but survival shop, right? We'd get the phone slapped out. Yeah, totally. We'd get the phone slapped out of our ear. But because of that, because I grew up like that, and we kind of came. So like the duty guy was always like, if there was a 7:30-90 day going out, well, the duty guy was part of the 7:30-90 day. So, I mean, I've always kept that mindset. So because we did that in Los Angeles, and because we did, hey, I was like, hey, we got floats coming due. Like, let's go take the floats off. And they're like, oh, Chief, that's an AMT job. And I'm like, we don't do that anymore. I'm like, well, we're going to do it now. Yeah. And because the warrant and the other chiefs saw the swimmers out there taking floats off and putting floats back on, and, hey, they're out there for 7:30-90 day, but they're not turning wrenches. The least we can do is wax the tail of the aircraft, right? So we're doing that much. When those guys left at 10, 11 o'clock, the warrant never said a word. Yeah. He never came down there like, hey, Matt, where are your guys at? No.
Which is, but there's another piece of that.
It's an easy trade-off. Easy trade-off.
And in all reality,
now,
you should be out
different
of the aircraft.
Different times, though, right? Like I kind of see where I kind of lean the other way now, based on how far along the proverbial trail the animal has grown in the rate and in the Coast Guard. I mean, it's they don't have time for it, and they don't have the bodies.
Yeah,
so
that's
we
true.
we had the bodies and the time. Now they don't. And, my hat's off to them for doing what they're able to do now with the amount of resources and people that they have. So awesome.
The last time I checked, as of this recording, we're down. I want to say like 15 or 20% on manpower alone. And God, you know what? Please don't quote me on that, because I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But that was the last thing I heard. It may be updated since then, but even having that percent down, even at 10%, oh my gosh, it's a lot. So, but
LA was it for me. That was it. And I knew going there that was going to be my last tour.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I know you did a couple other things outside of the Coast Guard, but what I'm gonna fast forward through those to Priority 1 Air Rescue. So you get hired on with Priority 1 Air Rescue. You were an instructor and you were standing duty. And I want to touch on the first one right off the get go. Is you have a kind of a memorable medevac call out. You and Dustin Scara.
My stand teammate. Yeah.
I love it, man. Yeah. What happened?
Yeah. See, we get called out for a guy on a small platform, and it's one of those platforms. It's not very far off. I mean, it's outside of 12 miles, but it's not much further outside of that. But and it's one of those small manned platforms, probably about 5 or 6 guys on it. And the guy was on one of those supply ships or boats or something, and they pulled up to the platform and kicked this guy off the boat. Like the guys on the boat, like he was 5150. Like he was obviously going through some issues or had some issues.
AKA crazy. AKA
who knows?
Got it.
Yeah, we don't know, right? We can only speculate.
Speculation.
And so
5150
so we got
crazy. Yeah,
so we're flying, 139, so we can't land. So they hoist Dustin and I down there, and Dustin was a paramedic, and so we're down. He was my medic, and so we're down there, and I'm like, we go in, and there's a couple of guys. They're like, and the guy's like, he's not a big guy. He's probably
over there.
He's sitting in a chair in this like little like bunk house and shed. And he's sitting on a chair in the middle of the shed, and there's a couple of guys there watching him, and like he's like, oh, my mama. He's like going like just talking all kinds of stuff, and I'm like looking at Dustin like, and I'm like, what are we doing? Like, this is law enforcement, not SAR. Like, what is wrong with us? What are we doing? And so we go outside and we're talking, and I'm like, man, I don't know. And he's like, oh man, and finally, we're just like, the only way to get him out of here is to hoist him out. But he's not going to come with us. Like, And we're like, we're just going to have to drop him. I'm like, what? He's like, we're going to have to snow him. I'm like, what? All right. Okay. I'm like, I go in and I'm like trying to distract the guy, and he's looking up at me, and like Dustin, does his thing, his medic thing. And the guy's looking at me like, oh man, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he's like, says, what are you doing about 3 or 4 times. And all of a sudden,
go to sleep, like, big man, go to sleep.
Yeah.
So breathing, check.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah. So we throw him in the AVID, harness, and like it fits like a jacket, as you know, we put him in that, and it's got handles all over it. So we're like, and then we have to go up to the platform to hoist him. So we got to like drag this guy up the stairs. And I'm like,
shit.
And I'm like, Dustin's like, I'm going to go up with him. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, because I don't want him waking up with the hoist operator. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, yeah. So we end up knocking the guy out to take him off the oil rig. It was like, but in my mind, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, this is a LE thing. This is the cops usually deal with the crazies, not us. So I'm like, all right. Yeah. So funny. But,
you never know what we're going to get. No,
it's I mean, you did your time in the Gulf of Mexico. It's a box of chocolates out there.
Oh my gosh!
And they've eaten all the chocolates.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah. I have some great memories.
I'm sure.
Either like just people we picked up, just 5 of those. I loved it down there. I had such a blast.
Yeah, and they're awesome. They're awesome, and unfortunately, they just they work a hard job and live a hard life, and sometimes they get in trouble. Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
I'm looking forward to when Dustin comes on here so he can verify all these stories too.
You know how Dustin tells a story too, though. I mean, there's a lot of hand gestures and
yeah, totally. And he better have 2 collared shirt too.
A lot of analogies. Yeah,
right.
for sure.
Freaking love that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, he's good.
So the next part about you working with P1, I want to go with this, like into this segue into this section right now, is that you were part of the training team down there.
Yep.
And this is another yet commonality of you and I, is that we both have had the opportunity to train in the Coast Guard. So now let me backtrack to that one and say that I was not in A school and I was not on the state team, but I was on the FEB. So I was a flight board examiner at my unit in Humboldt. So I was teaching guys cliff ops. I was teaching guys in the water, and that's my job, was to get them qualified so that when Stan team came through, they're like, Quinn, he knows what he's doing. He can continue to teach. So, but then I went to P1. I taught with P1. Since then, I've been teaching with SR3, and there's been a couple things in between. But one of the passions that you and I share is that love to share the knowledge that we have with everybody out there. And I love that, because you and I have had such a unique experience where we've been able to go around and teach people not only what we know, but share things we've learned along the way with everybody else. I love it. We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors. Attention all rescue professionals and tactical athletes. Ready Swimmer and the Real ResQ have teamed up to bring you the ultimate solution in tactical athlete training. Developed by military rescue professionals, our team boasts over 60 years of combined experience. Elevate your performance both physically and mentally with our individualized programming. Contact us at readyswimmer.com or through therealresq.com and unlock your full tactical athlete potential. The question is, are you ready?
Yeah, I mean, and I was, like we talked about before, I was going to college to be a teacher. So, and Perfect. I was coaching swimming and water polo. So, I mean, if I look back, and that's why I say all the time, like it is not beyond the pale or lost on me that I've had a pretty charmed life. For the better part of 20 years, I got to do, whether I wanted to or not, getting recruited to go to A school or go to the stand team, whether I wanted it or not, it led me into a path that allowed me to do the 2 things that I was going to school originally to do anyway. I got to teach and I got to coach, because half of it, as half of A school is being a coach. It's not, you're facilitating a lesson plan, but you're coaching these guys and gals up to the level to get them where they want to be. Right. There's no, and I used to, Keith Hines, awesome. I don't know if you ever ran into Keith Hines. You probably met him at DSER. He was there. He was there last year, I think. But anyway,
I'm sure we've run across paths.
Keith Hines used to say all the time, and we used to always say it to one another, there's no such thing as a bad student, only bad teachers, only bad instructors, right? Because they only want what I already have. And it's my job to try to get them to that. Now, not everybody's going to get there. We all know that. But it's my job or our job to try to get them there the best way we know how, right? So, I mean, that's, and I've always taken that to heart, and I've always kind of looked at it that way. And the other part is I knew, especially at A school and even on the stand team, this isn't the end of the road. Well, I thought at A school it was going to be the end of the road for me, but I always knew, when I knew that I wasn't getting out, I knew, hey, I'm gonna have to work with these people again. I don't want them carrying around that bad. I want them to understand that I was hard but fair. But I don't want them walking around like, oh, that guy was a jerk. I couldn't stand that guy. And maybe some feel that way. I'm not sure. We never know. But I didn't want that. I didn't want that feeling. So, yeah, I mean, so I got to do the best parts of what I wanted to do for the last, the better part of 20 years. So, I mean, it's almost been like I wanted it to be all along. I just didn't know it, kind of to your point.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, and having been an instructor post Coast Guard, I think you said it, you and I've talked about it. You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
Until you see something and you're like, oh my God. And then you start looking back like, man, I could have used that at this point, at this point, at this point.
Yeah.
Or my friend that did this case could have used that at this point and this point, and all of those things. And then having the ability to like go around and I was very fortunate, or have been very fortunate, to have traveled the world, not just in my own personal life, but as an instructor as well. And then picking up like, oh, that's a really good technique, or that's a really good process, or that's a really good piece of equipment. And then having the ability to, hey, these guys do this really well, or hey, this piece of equipment does this really good. And having the ability to like transfer that knowledge and information to other people around the world we're all out there trying to do the best that we can and the best job that we can for the people that you're in charge of or that you're responsible for. And, I think, Mario said it best last year at the EUROSA conference. Like, there is a wealth of knowledge and information out there from all of us. But for some reason, we have this, like, let's hold our cards close to our chest mentality versus like, hey, man, I don't own the SAR world here. Like, go forth and do great things with it. And if you use it, great. And if you don't use it, okay, that's fine. And like, you and I were at the DRF conference, and I gave that speech this time about, like, hey, what are you going to do when you get punched in the mouth? Do you have a plan? Or are you just going to stand there? Are you just going to stand there or are you going to stand there and shock, and half of it is to having the knowledge and information and resources at your disposal to be able to have a plan. So, yeah.
And one of the things that I really like now in our position, what we've done and how we've done it is we are encouraging people to get outside training. And I'm not just trying to sell P1, SR3 or ARS. And I truly believe that when you have an outsider come in and really evaluate your program or what you do, you're going to get a perspective that maybe you never thought of, or maybe you've never seen and or even heard of. And I'll caveat off the fact that you said, I feel the same way. When I was in the Coast Guard, after I get out and all the stuff I've seen, I'm like, oh my gosh, that would have been so nice to have X, Y, or Z while I was in.
Yeah. Right.
Like the little things that you're like, oh, that would have been nice. Oh, that would have been nice. So,
and even if you don't have it though, right? Like, it's not a knock on anybody. It's just, but what the other side of that is what we've seen with organizations that may not have this or may not have X. The gear and equipment and the procedures and techniques that they do have, they're very well. They do them very well. Right. And they're safe and they're responsible. Like, those are the things. And, are there efficiencies that can be added to it? 100%. Like, nothing is completely 100%. This is the most efficient way of doing it. There's always going to be a better way. There's always going to be another way. Someone's always going to develop a new technique, but it's just a matter of like being open and sharing that information. Right? Yeah. So, yeah.
Well,
yeah. So that was a big thing.
For sure. And I like the idea of the tools in the toolbox. Like, I have a hammer, but a hammer's not going to help me when I need a wrench. Maybe. Right. Maybe I can use a wrench as a hammer, but, there are certain tools in certain scenarios that you want to be able to use, and to have that is amazing. And that's one of the things I really like about the fact that we can share a lot of the knowledge that we have. I think it's amazing. And I encourage everybody to find somebody else to look at what you're doing, or make a phone call to another agency. Say, hey, how do you do that? Why do you do it that way? Yeah. A simple why. Right. And then it opens a whole conversation. It's great.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So, man, thanks, man. I appreciate you going down that path. Like, I love it. So,
for sure.
Matt,
that was great. Yeah.
I've got one more question before I let you go. And that is, if you had a piece of advice you would pass on to everybody out there doing the job and what they're doing today, with everything you've been through, and we're talking like swimmer school, instructor, actual SAR cases, P1, training there, what would it be?
I would say as to specifically my military brethren, like, don't shy away from the non-operational aspect of your job, right? Like, everybody, and you know this, I'm not saying anything that you don't already know. Like, it's, being a rescue swimmer or being a hoist operator or a system operator or a flight mechanic or a crew chief or a PJ, like all of that, that's the sexy part, right? Like, that's the part that sells, online, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Like, that's all the part that, like, everybody wants to do it. And once you're in it, and it's hard to get there, which is why you're so tied to it, because it's hard to get there. And then once it's achieved, you don't want to leave it, right? Like, oh man, this is so cool. This is awesome. This is what I want. This is what I trained to do. This is what I want. I want to do this forever. We all do, However, that being said, if not for my outside of operational experiences in my Coast Guard career, I'm not sure I'm sitting here today with a vest on that says life-saving systems as a product manager, right? Or I'm not sure I'm sitting as an instructor traveling all around the world working for a hoist operation company, right? Or I'm not sure I'm in my office in downtown Chicago working as a regional director for the Wounded Warrior Project, right? Based on me just being an operational rescue swimmer my whole career. So I would say if that opportunity comes knocking and you have someone above you that says, hey, I think you're going to be really good at this for this position, or, it's not operational, but I think your skill sets match that. And it's not everybody's passion. I get it. However, that said, like, don't shy away from it, because those things are meant to put you somewhere later down the road and are only going to help you down the road when you get to where it is you're probably truly supposed to be, right? And I've literally stepped in the shoes of giants at every juncture across the road, like leaving my first unit, going to A school. I mean, thanks for Butch Flythe for bringing me down there. I mean, there's not a swimmer in the Coast Guard that doesn't know his name, right? Like,
true statement.
Coming back and going down, and having Clay Hill bring me down to the stand team and working with Dustin and Blaine, like in that group down there, and being an instructor at Advanced Helicopter Rescue School. Like, that's a big deal. Those were big shoes to try to put my size 8 foot into, right? I'm not a big guy. Got small feet, Jason. And then leaving that, and then going to Priority One, and the names of people that worked there and the things that they were able to do, and the ability to travel across the world, and I was in Bangladesh in the middle of COVID, of all places, right? Like, training the Bangladesh Navy. Like, that's awesome. How does that happen to a kid from Southeast Fresno in Central California? It just doesn't. So yeah, it's crazy. And then ultimately ended up, landing where I am now. Let's be honest. I mean, Mario is known across the world, and
yes, he is.
stepping into those shoes and having his faith in me that, Matt's the guy for this job and can do this job, and having the team at Life Saving Systems say, yeah, this guy is, he's it. So having that faith in me, again, that kid from Southeast Fresno in Central California. And now, and it's not necessarily a full circle moment, but it's definitely a pinch me moment. Like, the fact that I still get to be a part of communities across the world, just in a different way now, right? Like, all the things, designing gear and implementing efficiencies and helping produce product that, and everybody at Life Saving Systems sees it. If you weren't a hero yesterday, you are today, because they're manufacturing gear and equipment that somewhere right now, someone's using to save a life or assisting someone in, right? Like, it's crazy when you think about it, and you try to put it in a box. It just doesn't fit, right? So I kind of have to pinch myself sometimes, but yeah, it's pretty amazing. And obviously with the background that I bring, there's some new and exciting gear and equipment coming down the pipe. Not to blow anything in there, but there's some new and exciting gear and some partnerships that we've developed, not just with SR3, but with Priority One. We've developed a few pieces of gear. The pet bag and AVET are going to be hitting the pet bags hitting the market like the end of the month here with Life Saving Systems and obviously with a lot of work with Priority One, and then SR3 and Rob Monday's doing some work with another piece of gear and equipment that they've asked and requested that we try to make for them, and they're out doing it right now, and that's up on the website. So yeah, it's an interesting time, and there's a lot of knowledge and information sharing going into some new gear and equipment. So yeah, I think it's awesome.
That's fantastic. So first, let me say thank you for the piece of advice. I love it. I've the majority of my career has been operational and or training. I haven't had the opportunity to actually go in and do that outside, like A school or stand team. So I love that advice, because those will open doors that you never expected. And the second part of that, a huge congratulations to you for taking over Mario Vitone's spot in Life Saving Systems. You are the new person to contact. Woo! The number one person to be like, hey, bro, I got an idea.
Yeah. And they
that's
come.
what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And they come already. No, it's good.
Oh, man, that's fantastic, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Good to be up here.
Yeah, you're probably going to hear from me a lot. I've already told you that, but, Matt,
okay.
I got an idea.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, no, Quinny, no.
Yeah. Well, to your toolbox, right? And that's always the funny thing. Like everybody, I have a hammer, but I need a wrench. And someone goes, oh, I got a wrench. And I'm like, yeah, but your wrench has a lot of things on it. Can we just peel some of that back? Right. Like my big thing is like, I was an operator. You were an operator. You know how to keep it simple. Don't over-engineer it, because the end user wants it to be simple and efficient, but highly effective and safe. Right. So that's the mindset. That's the mindset going into it, and that's kind of what I want to keep. So yeah, for sure.
Bro, amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Thanks, man.
Matt,
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on and joining me, telling some stories and everything you're doing now. Great piece of advice again. And again, a huge congratulations for being hired at LSC to be that main go-to guy. I love it. I'm excited for you. So
appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I know it's been a while, but glad we finally got it to work.
I'm psyched it worked, man. And the next time I see you, we have a whiskey either on the rocks or neat. I'm good with both.
Yeah, I may or may not have a bottle of that Quinny stuff over here on my shelf and sitting next to a couple other things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
I think I might have to bring a bottle as well.
Yeah. And, hey, Lake's always open. So if you find yourself in Traverse City, come on by.
Absolutely. Oh, my gosh. Consider it done.
Yeah.
I'll make it a point.
You bet.
So,
all right,
Matt,
buddy.
Absolute pleasure, brother. And I will see you soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Anytime. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here.
Go.
Now it's time for me to pull chocks and take off. But before I go, I'm always looking for the memorable rescues that people have done. If you have one that you're willing to share or know somebody who has a story, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to highlight it here at the Real ResQ. For everybody that is standing by for that SAR alarm, remember, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. So until next time, fly safe and swim hard. Thank you for joining me today here at the Real ResQ Podcast, powered by Vertical Helicast. We'd also like to say thank you to our sponsors for this episode.
Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory, globally 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Attention all rescue professionals and tactical athletes. Ready Swimmer and the Real ResQ have teamed up to bring you the ultimate solution in tactical athlete training. Developed by military rescue professionals, our team boasts over 60 years of combined experience. Elevate your performance, both physically and mentally, with our individualized programming. Contact us at readyswimmer.com or through therealresq.com and unlock your full tactical athlete potential. The question is, are you ready? And therealresqstore.com, your shop for all your podcast-worthy gear. From comfortable shirts to cozy mugs, we've got everything to showcase your love for your favorite podcast. So what are you waiting for? Head to therealresqstore.com and let your gear do the talking. Go. Hey, Matt, I got one more side question to ask you, and that is, what's the funniest thing that ever happened to you on a swimmer training flight?
Oh, it's probably I hate to even say it, but it's true. It happened. It's fact. My first stand check, Wayne Plucker was the guy from the stand team. Was a first class, came up to do the visit. In Traverse City, we had our own swimmer boat that we would take out. So, but we had the auxiliary coming to pick us up down at the marina here in town, and the plane, the 65, came out to meet us. So I'm down there, and I got my swimmer bag, and it's my first stand check, and I'm out there. And granted, I'm the first A school student to report to Traverse City after A school in like 6 or 8 years.
Oh my God.
So everybody that's here, even the third classes that are here on their second tour, like I'm the only first tour guy.
Okay.
So, and I've been there a year, right? So not even, I don't think. No, it was the fall of my first. I got here in June, and it was just like September timeframe, or into September, October. I'm doing my stand check, so I'm brand new. I got my swimmer bag, and I'm down there, and I'm down at the dock, and I'm opening my bag, and I'm pulling out my TriStar harness. I'm getting on my gear, and I go, I don't have my dry suit, and I'm like, I'm in full blown panic mode. Because I'm like full blown. So I call back to the shop, and an airman answers the phone, and I go, hey, it's Matt. Do me a solid. Go down to my locker, grab my dry suit, and bring it down to me here at Clinch Park Marina. And he's like, okay. And I go, do not tell anyone in the shop what you're doing. Okay. Dude, he pulls into the parking lot. He comes walking over to me with my dry suit, right? The old blue and orange Tri-Lam. Yeah. And you know how you can tell that something's been messed with sea-dye marker based on how the tinge of orange looks? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
There is a tinge of orange all over my dry suit. And I'm like, mother... And he brings it to me, and I open it up, and I can hear the plane now, right? And I open it up, and I'm like, it's covered inside with broken open sea-dye marker.
Like inside covered. The dry suit. Inside.
I've got no choice. I've got my undergarments on. Wayne's waiting for me. Pluckers are already in the boat. I'm like hurrying up. I got no choice. I got to put it on and do the stand check. I put this thing on. Plucker and I jump in the water. It's green all around us. He's laughing, calling me nugget, calling me boot, blah, blah, blah. Dude, I do the stand check in this green sea dye all around us. I finish. It's fine. Like procedurally, everything's fine. But I'm just mortified, right? And I get out, and dude, I have... You know how sea-dye marker is, right? I have from the neck seal, I have orange around my neck and orange around both wrist seals. It was there for like a week. I couldn't scrub it off. Like I had to I don't know how many times I flipped that dry suit out and rinsed it out, tried to get it clean. The boys in the shop, Jason Shepard, Pat Bodenshot, John Donahue, like all those guys, man, they got me good. They're like,
God.
I never forgot a piece of gear the rest of my life. I can guarantee you that. But oh my God, dude, I was like, you gotta be crapping me. Really? Yeah.
Excellent.
That was a good one. Yeah. Orange wrists and neck for like a week. Didn't go away.
Badass, dude. What a great funny story.
Every morning in the shop, constant reminder. Hey, where's your dry suit? Yeah.
Bro, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no worries. I'm glad we can sit back and laugh at my pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, man. That's fun.
Yeah. Cool.
Dude, thank you.